Once in a while I see a comment saying that bed slingers are dead. No explanation why, basically just trust me bro. So is there any truth to it? Is the Core XY design the future of even the cost-effective printers? Well, to determine that, it is actually not that hard. We just need to compare how much it costs to make one, look at the main differences and see some print comparisons. So without further ado, let's get an answer based on some actual data right after this quick sponsor segment by PCBWay. Currently, there's an active anniversary sale where you can get significant discounts to get professional manufacturer parts for your projects. Either it is a simple PCB or a complex metal part that needs CNC machining. And one of the best things is how it is simple to order parts, as they have all options well explained and even visualized. So make sure to check them out with links in the video description. Bed slingers, that is what most people call the printers nowadays, where the whole bed moves along the Y-axis. Meanwhile, in Core XY design we have a stationary bed and all the X and Y movement is performed by the printhead. This leads to bed slingers not being able to accelerate as fast because we have to move the heavy bed. My test subject for the comparisons will be the SV06 Plus running Klipper on a new BTT Pi that company sent for a video. It will represent a cost-effective printer that has a good motion system with no firmware limitations, but also better show what can go wrong with bed slinger designs because of its size. And with bigger size comes bigger problems. Accelerations on X-axis almost never will be an issue because of how light it is. But vibrations for the heatbed at high accels could be transferred to it along the Y direction if your frame is not rigid enough. That is why ideally you need to use supporting rods that eliminate this issue. But that obviously adds up in price. So first let's roughly calculate how much all the needed profiles would cost for a bed slinger compared to Core XY. I'll be using a Voron Trident with the same size bed for reference, and I have to say that I thought the price would be a little bit closer, but even the unoptimized design where profiles I use as supporting rods gives us a 37% cost difference compared to the Core XYs. This example is when using linear rails, and there are different ways to go about it, as Sovol does here by using linear rods. But the reason I love linear rails so much is together with aluminum extrusions they give a way more rigid axis. In the SV06 Plus case it also doesn't help that those rods are so close to each other, resulting in way more play. And you might say, but that doesn't affect when printing. That is mostly true if you print at low accels and speeds, but the more you push the printer to its limit, the more it could start affecting, as vibrations will be on a different level. That leads us to the cost of the motion systems. Again, for more apples to apples comparison, I will be using the cost of linear rails. And the price difference in this aspect is surprising. Core XY design here is cheaper mostly because we will need longer rails and additional carriages for the bed slingers. We also have to space them further away for better stability. And because we have a bed leveling probe, we can use metal spacers to further away increase the overall rigidity of the assembly. But like before, linear rails on aluminum extrusions will be so much stiffer, and the rigidity limiting factor will be the bed's mounting plate. Not really an issue with rails, but with linear rods it can be if you go too big, as you can get a slightly bowed motion. Moving further away from a bed, we can take a look and compare the Z-axis. Two motors here are great, but because they run on a single driver, there is no smart way of leveling the gantry by probing at each side of the bed. It just rams both ends of the axis into the top and aligns the gantry in this way. Meanwhile, Trident has 3 motors that are controlled by separate drivers. That increases cost quite a bit, but a more budget-oriented Core XY mostly uses 2 lead screws that are synchronized with a belt and have a single Z motor. So I would say that in this aspect the cost between the bed slingers and Core XYs can be basically identical. And looking at other things, I don't really see anything that could weigh the cost significant in one or another direction between 2 designs. Well, apart from that we'll need around twice longer belts, more pulleys and a lot of bearings for the Core XY, so the price will be more than double here. That leaves us with a roughly 20% difference cost-wise between the designs on these parts. But we should be comparing the cost of all the parts, as that gives a way better representation, which is only 10%. So does this mean that the bed slingers are actually dead? There's only one way to find out, by comparing them with a Core XY machine. And these are the Benchy print results. Try to guess which one was printed on the SV06 Plus, my fully modded bed slinger, and a Core XY machine. All of them used recommended input shaping settings, and G-codes were identical except the Z-hop speeds and the retraction settings. So here is the answer. And those are probably unexpected results. So what about a higher accels of 6K? Well, it was more or less the same, and there was an identical story using the overfillment with my test Q-print. Surprisingly, SV06 Plus at these lower accels printed even better than my fully modded LG5, but with high accels it falls off as it just didn't have enough cooling. But this can be true, right? Core XY is superior, how can this happen? Well, these most likely are the extrusion problems because of a hot end heat creep and not enough part cooling. Have you ever wondered why companies add those huge blowers on the side of the printers? Because a lot of Core XYs are enclosed and the only openings for cold air will be only at the front and at the top when printing PLA. Meanwhile, bed slingers are fully open and even moving bed helps to get rid of heat faster. But even when I checked for the ghosting artifacts, they were basically identical on all the prints. The only difference here was that I was able to push up to 20k accels on Core XY printer, which gave a 20% print time reduction. And we can't print at faster speeds because most hot ends are the bottleneck. Fun enough is that from all these printers, the cheapest one had the most consistent extrusion and the best flow rate. So no wonder why the print looked the best on the Clipperized SV06 Plus when it ran at reasonable accels. All I'm trying to say here is that only the printer type doesn't paint a full picture, as all printers can be designed poorly. Core XYs will always be superior acceleration-wise, but smaller bed slingers are still very capable when running Clipper. Also, bed slingers will always be superior cooling-wise when printing PLA, and enclosed Core XYs always be superior when printing ABS. And to make a printer that can do it all requires knowledge, resources, and most importantly, more money. And because most of the companies to this day can't even make what I would consider a good cost-effective bed slinger, in my opinion, cost-effective Core XYs sound like a myth. I wanted to say that SV06 Plus is the exception on the bed slingers front. Well, it still kinda is, but it has a serious flaw. The part cooling and the mainboard fan are tied together, meaning that if you print something like PTG without a print cooling fan on, you will fry the board. But hey, I digress. So unless you are going more premium and closed source route with Bambu Lab, or premium and open source with DIY printers like Voron's and others, I doubt we'll actually see good cost-effective Core XY anytime soon, if ever. That is why I still don't think that bed slingers are dead, especially considering that most folks only print PLA, the maintenance and modifications are way easier, and the smaller ones are still very capable. But what are your thoughts about all this? Do you agree or you have a different opinion about it? Feel free to explain it in the comments below. If you enjoy the content, consider supporting my work on Patreon, as all these amazing people do. Huge thanks to all of you, and huge thanks to all the people who like and follow the channel. Well, that's all from me, and we'll see you next time.